Happy fall, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Spectator Sports. I'm your host, Sebastian Fonseca. This is episode number 110. And before we get into breaking down the action across the NFL for this week, let's do a little bit of housekeeping. If you're new to Spectator Sports and you want to help this channel grow, do us a massive favor. Drop a like on this video. Subscribe to the channel if you've done so already. And if you want to enjoy clips from this podcast, you can get it here on YouTube. We have it in our various playlists and also on TikTok. And you want to enjoy this on a audio experience, we have that in Spotify. All links are in the description, and let's get into breaking down this action across the NFL. Ladies and gentlemen, after 3 weeks of football action, the Minnesota Vikings are the best team in the NFL, and Sam Darnold is the MVP. So let's just shut it down and anoint him as the next it factor, the next guy as a face of this league, right? Well, it's a little bit too soon to do that. In fact, Sam Darnold embarked on a 3-0 start with the Carolina Panthers not too long ago. So let's pump the brakes a little bit, but also commemorate him on his wonderful adjustment in this Minnesota Vikings offense. For the first half of this game against the Houston Texans, he carved up a very good Texans defense that has made a ton of adjustments. Even their former defensive end, Danielle Hunter, switched teams to this Houston Texans team, and they also had Stephon Diggs returning to the site where he had this magical Minnesota miracle not too long ago. Despite that, Sam Darnold and these Minnesota Vikings have been able to respond despite so much adversity to start off this year. And even Sam Darnold getting a little nicked up along the way, he carved up this Houston Texans defense that was so tenacious on Sunday night against the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams that we didn't know what we're going to get in a matchup against two 2-0 teams on Sunday afternoon. But like I said, Sam did his thing and had a masterful performance, 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, and now he leads the league in touchdown passes through 3 weeks. And if you think about what he's been able to do, he established it to Justin Jefferson early and often to set the tone, but then also passed it to 3 other receivers in this game. To distribute the ball to so many different pass catches in this offense is just phenomenal, showcasing what Kevin O'Connell can do. To distribute the ball to so many different pass catches in this O'Connell offense is just another showcasing of what this guy can do as a head coach. Now, 3 weeks into it, Sam Darnold looks great, and they're doing a really good job. Especially, I want to shout out Aaron Jones. He's been cast off aside with the Green Bay Packers to make room for Josh Jacobs in the offseason. Well, he went to a division rival and is honestly looking a lot better in Minnesota than Josh Jacobs is in 3 games with the Green Bay Packers. Now, it's very early. We also know that Aaron Jones has some history with injuries in the past, so gonna knock on wood to have him have a healthy season and continue this trend throughout the entire season, because it's going to be instrumental for Minnesota's success going forward. Defensively, though, let's just talk about how they're able to manhandle this Houston offense. I mean, coming into this game, CJ Stroud has been basically mistake-free, but Brian Flores and his defense had other ideas coming into this game. They forced 2 interceptions. One was a tip pass, but still was altered by pressure. They sacked him 5 times, and former Texan Grenard actually had a phenomenal game with a hat-trick of sacks, kind of showing up his former team that traded him over to the Minnesota Vikings. And as a whole, if they're able to do this on both sides of the ball, they're able to clamp down defensively. They're also able to get after the passer. They're good on all 3 levels pretty much, because last year when Brian Flores took over this team, it was a work in progress and so many injuries at all 3 levels. But now, given that they're healthy and been another year under this system under Brian Flores, it's been pretty good. And no one really thought, including myself, that these Minnesota Vikings would be good coming into this season, but they have proved us wrong early. Let's see if they can control that and maintain that throughout the rest of the season. But already off to 3-0 against some very notable competition, I might add. It's going to be a big test next week against the Green Bay Packers, but as long as Sam Darnold is healthy, and able to go, I think the Minnesota Vikings are definitely a playoff contender in this very competitive division that is the NFC North. Is it time that we buy into the Pittsburgh Steelers and especially Justin Fields? Because through 3 weeks, these Steelers have beaten every opponent and they've been undefeated so far. And Justin Fields has been great incrementally along the way to not only have the starting gig for probably the rest of the season, but also maybe for long-term aspirations that he's been trying to do. Because after 3 weeks, they had a little bit of a leash on him, kind of being thrust into the starting lineup when you thought that Russ was going to be able to go, re-aggravated calf, and Justin Fields was the starter in Atlanta. It was very simple, check down Charlie, stuff at the line of scrimmage, but Justin Fields got the job done. Week 2, slowly open up the playbook. We saw some things that he was able to do back in his days at Ohio State, run down the field, but also keep plays alive. And then a little bit more of an unleashing of Justin Fields, running the ball, but also keeping his eyes downfield, surveying his options, and chucking it to the open receiver. And I thought this was his best performance as a Pittsburgh Steeler so far, and we know that the defense can get after it. TJ Watt is a superstar. He's going to continue to wreak havoc in the backfield as he's done so far this year. But it's always been a question about the offense. Last year, they had Matt Canada, who was atrocious. This year, they bring in a new OC for fresh perspective. And now you have Justin Fields sort of flourishing through 3 weeks. Now, we still have a long season to go, but the Steelers are 3-0 in a very competitive division. And as soon as they start playing their division rivals, that's going to be the true test to see how this team really adjusts. But so far, I mean, you're getting a leg up because these other AFC foes have been really stuck in the mud. So far, I mean, it's a 2-loss Baltimore team. It's a 2-loss Cleveland Brown team. And we still don't really know what to make of the Cincinnati Bengals, but still, they are very flawed. But through 3 weeks, Steelers are unbeaten. Justin Fields looks good. And now it's probably going to cement himself as the starter in Pittsburgh going forward, because what he's able to do and how this team has looked so far has been so much better in the post-Ben Roethlisberger era in Pittsburgh. Coming into this Eagles-Saints game, the talk around Philadelphia was what happened after the Saquon drop. Well, after Saquon dropped the ball and the Eagles couldn't have a chance to kill more clock against the Atlanta Falcons, Kirk Cousins went down the field like a Sunday stroll, and the Falcons had the go-ahead score and escaped with a win on Monday Night Football, 22-21. Many people were panicking amongst Eagles fans, where defense doesn't get any pass rush, defensive line looks really soft, and the play calling was questionable with Nick Sirianni, blah, blah, blah. Come into this game, and it was really, really frustrating to start off. I mean, you saw defense actually make some really good progress. They held the Saints in check for much of this game, but offensively could not get anything going. 4 consecutive drives in Saints territory, none resulted in points. The first drive, we saw Jalen Hurts get into the red zone and throw an interception. Definitely a bad throw, but you could also see that Devontae Smith kind of cut off the route, but still, bad throw on Jalen Hurts. Next one was a fumble in Saints territory. This poor pocket awareness from Jalen Hurts. This can't happen, giving up points, leaving it on the board. And then after that, we're seeing more of questionable decisions from Nick Sirianni, where he decides to go for it deep in Saints territory. And I mean, I like the decision, but unfortunately the play calling wasn't that great. But also think about the grand scheme of things. When it's under 20 seconds, how much more ground can you gain? Or if you have to take some shots into the end zone and also risk a turnover again or leaving points up on the board. Well, they didn't even get that opportunity because they failed to convert 4th down, leaving 3 points from a good kicker on the board. After halftime, you see similar things with them going for it in Saints territory, failed to convert, and again, leaving points on the board in a low-scoring game where clearly points are coming at a premium in this game. Defenses are getting after it, but offense is really having some unsuccessful periods. Well, 4th quarter comes around, and a play where basically Devontae Smith takes a cheap shot and his helmet gets knocked off, suffers a concussion, is ruled out for the rest of the game. This ignites the Eagles because they were able to reel off a 65-yard Saquon scamper into the end zone for the go-ahead score. And this sort of woke up the offense finally after struggling for much of this game. And the Saints offense even got triggered a little bit to get a couple of scores, and backs against the wall. It's 3rd and 16. Eagles are down 5 at this point, and Dallas Goedert, who's had a phenomenal day at this point, he reels off a 61-yard catch and run thanks to a brilliant mesh concept by Kellen Moore, where you're having the offense run completely to the right and you get defenders colliding into each other in the middle. Springs open a catch and run lane for Dallas Goedert. He's able to run up the left sideline. Didn't have all the gas to get to the end zone, but still sets up a 1st and goal situation from the 4. Saquon does the rest. Also gets a 2-point conversion from Saquon. Eagles go up 15-12. And this is where you put Derek Carr in a high pressure situation. And honestly, didn't look very comfortable for much of this game, and when they needed him to do so, he failed to deliver. Panicked and gave up a deep interception, trying to go for it all. When you have 50 seconds, you only need 3 points. You have a pretty reliable kicker, and just panics. Reed Blankenship cuts off the pass, and it's an INT, game over, Philly wins. And think about how this defense has looked. I mean, Vic Fangio heard it all throughout the week. We all harped on him. What is this defense going to do? And it started up front with the Georgia guys, with Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter. Jordan Davis, who has had some ups and downs early in his career and still is trying to find himself in the NFL. Well, he had a sack and really controlled the middle of the field, stuffing gains, holding up blocks, and then Jalen Carter did the same thing, but was far more disruptive, where he got into the backfield so many times, a couple of pass deflections, some tackles for loss, and really stuffed a lot of plays that we're seeing Kamara get loose for. And if he wasn't there, he ate up some blocks. Zach Bond and the linebacking core was able to be reinforcements to corral Alvin Kamara, who only had a long of 16 yards compared to 115 yards total that he had. He had 87 on this day, but only had 3.3 yards a carry. So really had to earn it against this Eagles front. So that's a massive improvement, because against Bijan, they were reeling off like 6-7 yards a carry. And then you factor in Tyler Algier, it was basically like 5.9 yards a carry or something like that. Just can't happen in the NFL. Well, big time adjustment against a big time back. And that is a huge adjustment because this Saints offense was so fast. It's high flying. And remember Rashid Shaheed, where the guy that just gets behind every defense for the first couple of weeks? Well, it was completely shut out. And that's a massive credit to the Eagles secondary, with guys like CJ Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship, Darius Slater, and Quinion Mitchell. To hold him out without a single catch after 5 targets that's phenomenal work. So the Saints offense was high flying. They scored 47 points. They scored 44 points in week 2. Holding this to 12 points. That is an amazing feat. And to do it in their own building, in a hostile environment where you don't have A.J. Brown, you're without Devontae Smith, basically you're without Lane Johnson, you're without Mekhi Becton, your starting right guard. They found a way to win. It was an ugly win, but I mean, considering the circumstances, outplaying the Saints team, it would have been much more deflating to lose this game, given that you knew you outplayed them despite all these injuries, and that makes winning so much more rewarding in the NFL. So credit to Eagles. They're 2-1 in a real thick of it division in the NFC race, but they're doing it right now, and on to Tampa Bay. I have to say, Jalen Hurts has a turnover problem. Through the start of last year in 2023 to now, Jalen Hurts has committed the most amount of turnovers in the NFL. And that's simply inexcusable. We just didn't really see that from Jalen in the past, making poor decisions, especially in the red zone. Already this year, we've seen 2 red zone interceptions, just not really having a good sense of pocket presence either, with holding onto the ball for too long and getting stripped, whatever it may be. It's just inexcusable. You're leaving points up on the board. And I get on guys. I get on Josh Allen so many times for the turnover problem. Well, I have to be fully objective when I'm covering sports, right? Where if it's even a guy that I support from my fan base, I have to hold Jalen accountable. This simply cannot happen for the Eagles to be successful. These turnovers are coming at inopportune times. They're just sloppy. They're inexcusable, whatever the case may be. They absolutely cannot happen. And it's just going to have to come down to coaching. And that's where I'm definitely a little bit concerned about, because Nick Sirianni has just been more of a rah-rah cheerleader kind of coach rather than being a hard-nosed, tough coach. So that's something we're going to have to see how this season develops, but Jalen Hurts is definitely a concern for this Eagles team. Since the last time I reported about the San Francisco 49ers, we learned about Christian McCaffrey's injury to his Achilles tendon. Well, Deebo Samuel is going to be missing some time as well. Just before their week 3 matchup against the LA Rams, it was coming up the news that George Kittle was going to be missing some time due to a tight hamstring, and due to that, he missed the game, and that's just another weapon for Brock Purdy not to have. And at this point, it's Brandon Ayuk and Juwan Jennings at this point. And while Jordan Mason was good again, it still wasn't quite enough to really establish a serious running game. And I mean, Brock did what he could. I have been critical of Brock. I think he had some kind of a loaded deck, but in the absence of these guys, he balled out. I mean, 3 touchdowns to Juwan Jennings, who has been really, really good. I think Juwan has been probably the 49ers' best receivers for this season, at least, because Ayuk has been a total disappointment. After getting the contract, we know he missed pretty much all of camp, and he just doesn't look really in sync with this offense right now, and that's probably due to the holdout, just not getting some reps, getting some chemistry with Brock Purdy, and that's going to have to improve, because once you get paid, you have to deliver. So Ayuk will absolutely need to improve his play in order to be a factor in this 49ers offense, because with these injuries, they're going to need him. Getting into the game, this is again the case where the 49ers are playing with their food too much. They're not doing the little things right under coach Kyle Shanahan. There's been a lot of questionable decisions that he's made that's led to 49ers losses, and yet again, it comes down to special teams execution, doing the little things, because it was an even score, and at this point, you're punting it away. As long as you don't allow a good return and you play good coverage, it's likely going to go to overtime, where it could be anyone's game. But instead, they give up a return that gets to midfield. And Matthew Stafford, I mean, this guy has been a gunslinger his whole life. And as long as he is in the game, he knows how to get guys open, throw guys open, especially him and Sean McVay. I think these two have been so good at doing so much with so little, because coming into this game, we talked about the 49ers injuries. Well, they have been totally decimated. The offensive line is patchwork. No Puka Nacua, no Cooper Kupp, no Tyler Higbee. Who is there to pass to? I mean, I had to Google who are the pass catchers coming out of this Rams offense outside of Tutu Atwell. I don't really know who else is on this team at this point. But still, Matthew Stafford is able to get a win on the road. He threw a great pass to set up a pass interference and set up a chip shot field goal, and the Rams are able to steal a win and get on the win column, because they were 0-2 coming into this game. And given that they had all these injuries, they may not be able to really be a playoff team just due to these injuries, but they can definitely have a place in playing spoiler to any one of their division foes. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the Niners now kind of respond, because it's desperate times now. You're 1-2, you've lost a couple of games. Thankfully, scheduling has packed up a bag where, thankfully for scheduling, it's helped out, because they're going to play the lowly New England Patriots next week. That's a great way to get back on the right course. In terms of contenders and the injuries, this is what I was really concerned about, them not having the bodies, the 49ers at least, to contend, and that could really derail your season after what could be a really promising start after being so close to winning the Super Bowl last year. The Baltimore Ravens came into Dallas totally desperate. They needed a victory after coming oh so close against the Kansas City Chiefs and blowing a lead against the Vegas Raiders. Well, they established a run with Lamar and Derrick Henry, and I mean, honestly, we thought that they were on pace to running for 400 yards. It was just that bad. They ran over the Dallas Cowboys. Lamar was amazing, but also Derrick Henry. I mean, 151 yards on the ground and just totally gashing the once very talented Dallas defense, especially at home. But they have proven to be soft in the middle, especially in the defensive tackles, and that just has a ripple effect throughout the entire team. This paved the way for the Cowboys to be behind 28-6, and yes, they rallied to make it a 3-point game thanks to some trickery with the onside kick and garbage time. Dak coming up clutch again with so many last-minute garbage yards and touchdown passes to boost up his numbers. But still, we knew that the Ravens were still in control, and they did so. They were able to hold off this rally from the Dallas Cowboys. And now Dallas falls to 1-2. They've lost a couple straight games and being honestly blown out back-to-back games at home. It's a really troubling sign. I liked what I saw from Mike Zimmer's team to start, but that was against a very poor Cleveland offensive line and a very poor quarterback that has been basically devoid of confidence, at least for the last 3 years. And you're looking at what's coming out the pipeline for the Dallas Cowboys. They're looking okay with a Thursday night game against the New York Giants, but after that, the schedule gets a lot harder. You think about Micah Parsons, the next guy going to be up for an extension. Well, he's going to have to play a lot better, especially against playing the run. Unless he's a guy that's getting sacks and playing downhill, and that's something that this defense really thrives on. We're not seeing a lot of success from this Dallas defense when they can tee off and rush the passer and play with the lead, when they are really tasked to force teams to stop the run and preserve leads. That's something that they just aren't tasked to do. And again, this comes back to ownership in Jerry Jones. He had opportunities to upgrade the offense. We knew it was CeeDee Lamb and a bunch of guys, but outside of maybe Jake Ferguson, I don't see a reliable pass catcher in this team, and they're really one-dimensional. They have no running game. Between Ricky Dowell and a washed-up, cooked Ezekiel Elliott, there's no running game. So that means you're letting Dak sit back and pass for maybe 45, 60 times a day. And that's just not enough. You need a running game to keep the defense honest. And they had the opportunity to have Derrick Henry, but they said they couldn't afford him. Where's the money going to, Jerry? I understand it's a salary cap league, but the money is not making sense when you have so many opportunities to extend players early, create an opportunity to spend money sooner. But that's when you play this late game and you're cheap, you're trying to be something where you're trying to be ahead of the game when in fact you're not, and now you're paying the price for it. So with Dallas, it's just a lot of management issues. We've been honest and keeping that consistent on this platform, and we're going to continue to be on this platform saying that Jerry Jones is holding the Dallas Cowboys back. The Carolina Panthers went into Las Vegas and with a quarterback change, and they benched number 1 overall pick from last year's draft, Bryce Young, and they started Andy Dalton. And while Andy Dalton immediately showed what this Panthers offense is capable of doing with competent quarterback play, with 319 yards on 26 of 37 passing and 3 touchdown passes. It's clear to me that the problem for the Carolina Panthers is their quarterback, and it's not Andy Dalton, it is Bryce Young. I understand the organization has made a lot of mistakes, and that's basically killed the confidence of their quarterback, but remember, he's a smaller quarterback too. Can't really see the field behind these large offensive linemen, and could be potentially very brittle too due to his lack of size. And Dave Canales has to prioritize the locker room. He can't lose his guys just for the sake of developing a guy that just isn't getting the job done. The Jets tried it, and it's almost nearly cost Robert Saleh his job. It remains to be seen. But the Panthers cannot make the same mistakes the Jets made. It's clear Bryce Young isn't the guy in Carolina to play for this team. And to be honest, if Andy Dalton is going to be able to replicate these type of performances on a consistent basis, it's the same team, same personnel. It's just the guy. And this could be the last time we're seeing Bryce Young start for the Carolina Panthers. Going to the WNBA, A'ja Wilson wins her 3rd MVP, and this is on a season where she averaged 26.9 points a game, becoming the first woman to score more than 1,000 points in the regular season. Now, she's had some benefit playing some more games compared to players like Diana Taurasi as the WNBA has continued to expand, but nonetheless, she has been absolutely phenomenal. I've always talked about how she's been a defensive anchor, a 2-time DPOY, multiple-time All-Star, first team All WNBA, but 3rd MVP, 2 times Finals MVP. She's making a case to be one of the greatest of all time in this sport. Absolutely is a Mount Rushmore type of player. And now coming into this season, she had to pick up the slack because the surrounding cast, as talented as they are for the Vegas Aces, hasn't been up to par. And now they'll have to find a way to navigate the WNBA playoffs, where they could face the New York Liberty in the semifinals in round 2, where it's a rematch of last year's WNBA finals. And I like that matchup with her against Stewie, but so far, I mean, the Liberty have been so good coming into this year, and they could be one of the favorites in this playoff run. But with Asia Wilson there, I mean, they have a really good chance, a puncher's chance to upsetting the Liberty in the playoffs. So that's it for this episode of Spectator Sports. Remember to help this channel grow, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel. Remember, you can get clips from this episode here on YouTube in our playlist and also on TikTok. And you want to enjoy Spectator Sports on an audio platform, we got that for you too on Spotify. All links are in the description. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Really appreciate these new subscribers, the views, the likes. All the activity is great for us, and I will catch you on the next one. Everybody, take care and be safe.